Well, guys, here we are with the Gospel of Luke, the 6th chapter. We have invited all of you to help us discern what's going on here. But before we hear from Jesus, let's hear from each of you. Just give us your names so we know who you are.
Hi, I'm Derek.
I'm Sierra.
I'm Connor.
And I'm Gavin.
Well, let's read the Gospel and see what's going on.
Our reading today comes from Luke, the 6th chapter. Jesus came down with the 12 and stood on a level place, with a great crowd of his disciples and a great multitude of people from all Judea, Jerusalem, and the coast of Tyre and Sidon. They had come to hear him and to be healed of their diseases. And those who were troubled with unclean spirits were cured. And all in the crowd were trying to touch him, for power came out from him and healed all of them.
Then he looked up at his disciples and said, "Blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. Blessed are you who are hungry now, for you will be filled. Blessed are you who weep now, for you will laugh.
Blessed are you when people hate you, and when they exclude you, rival you, and defame you, on account of the Son of Man. Rejoice in the day and leap for joy, for surely your reward is great in heaven, for that is what their ancestors did to the prophets.
But woe to you who are rich, for you have received your consolation. Woe to you who are full now, for you will be hungry. Woe to you who are laughing now, for you will mourn and weep. Woe to you when all speak well of you, for that is what their ancestors did to the false prophets."
All right, now that you've had your coffee and you have the Gospel, we are ready to go. What do you hear in here that's remarkable, questionable, or otherwise interesting?
Something I find interesting is not really like the text and what or it is a little bit about what it's talking about, but in this like second section, it's talking about how like the poor and the hungry are getting blessed and they're getting filled. And then towards the end, it's like the opposite. And both of those paragraphs look kind of similar as well, so I was just looking at it from above the words, and that's what I saw.
Yeah, it's really interesting actually in this gospel. Unlike we're used to hearing the Beatitudes from Matthew where it's like, blessed are the poor in spirit. Luke gets really gritty. He's like, no, literally, if you are poor or you are empty or you are hungry or whatever it is you are, God is literally with you.
And it's not just the poor that he's with everybody. And that's what I like about those two paragraphs is he's talking about he's with everyone, not just the poor, not just the rich, he's with everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's easier when we have stuff to, I think, feel joy, feel God's presence. Like, look, it's not an accident that in most churches in the United States, a lot of the people are middle class or above, right? Even though Jesus literally said, blessed are you when you are suffering or empty, God is here for you. We don't always do a good job talking about that God because that God isn't easy to understand. The God who gives us what we want is easy to understand. Jesus says, sure, that exists, but also how about the part that you didn't expect?
Yeah, and I think a lot of times in church, we hear that, like, blessed are you the poor, and then, like, the more damnation on the second half. Like, oh, if you are these things, you're terrible. Which there is a certain level of culpability to that. But really what he's saying is, if you're full now, you will be hungry. That's just the truth of life. It's saying that these riches won't last forever. This sin won't last forever. That it's all going to end. And that there's a certain salvation for all of us regardless.
Yeah, that's really interesting, I think. And, okay, there are things in life that are good, but anything that we base our life on as a foundation ultimately will disappear except for love and God. Those are the two things that remain, yeah? And it's not so much that we don't enjoy the other things. I love having them. I mean, somebody at this table just got a new car, and it's kind of nice, yeah? And it's good to have it, right? But if your entire identity is based on that car, and you feel like you're empty or don't have any identity until you get the thing, well, that thing will eventually go away. That thing can be taken from you, right? You miss a car payment, and it's gone, right? But love and life and joy that God gives stays forever.
I think, I'm going to continue off what Derek said, like how life goes up and down like that. I've always heard people say that, but it never, I feel like most sayings don't really provide a bunch of meaning until it actually does something. So like your life going up and down is actually pretty important. If you were just up the whole time, if you were down the whole time, it's not the same. So I thought that was pretty interesting for me as well.
Like learning from your ups and downs and moving forward and living life.
Yeah, it's interesting, I think. I saw a teacher talk once, right? And he said, well, people were getting mad because someone came without a pencil and he gave them a pencil. And he said, people were mad. They said, you don't have a pencil for everybody, right? Why are you giving this kid a pencil? He said, because the kid needs a pencil. Not everybody needs a pencil. If you brought a pencil, you don't need a pencil. It's fine, you're good. If you forgot yours, here's your pencil, it's okay. I think God works that way, right? And we get mad because we want to measure equals. Like, okay, well, if God gave Connor something, then God better give Derek something, that same thing. Well, not necessarily. If Derek was already up here and Connor was down here, well, maybe Connor needs the extra something today. And that's okay, even though it looks like God is giving more to you than to you, or sometimes vice versa.
I think especially in our culture, we like to think of things as either unilaterally equal or you got to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And that's very much what we've been taught. And that what comes with that territory is people pleasing. God literally says here, blessed are you when people hate you. In that sometimes God isn't shaking the right hands and saying the right things. In a lot of ways, that accomplishes little to nothing deep and meaningful.
God is there for you even when you're at your absolute lowest. It's not, oh yeah, when you're doing good, God is there. He's always right there with you, holding your hand, helping you through everything.
It's the trap of achievement, right? And this is how we motivate you, right? There's a reason high schoolers are here doing this gospel, because you've been motivated since the time you were young. If you get good grades, you'll have success, and this is your key to whatever, right? Or if you do the right thing. Well, you should get good grades and do the right thing if you can. But you know what? God is not waiting for you to get good grades to love you. God loves you even when the test doesn't turn out right.
And I want to talk about what he said. I think that God has to be there with us even when it's low, but he's not going to be with us instantly, right? So when we have those moments, we can't be like, oh, why is this happening to me? We have to know that this is going to be something that we can learn from and build off of, and then in the future he can help us.
I think that part of this key to that is you can't learn if you feel like you're falling off the cliff, right? Nobody learns when they're in free fall, okay? Yeah. But when there's a bottom, even if you're at that bottom, if you're at it and you're not falling anymore, then you can begin to say, where do I go from here, right?
Yes.
God's great gift to us is being infinite with love, spirit, and joy, and filling up the bottoms of those canyons with those things. So after the free fall is done, after we splash down, there's something solid beneath us that we can then walk through or swim through and get through, right? And this is the problem with our conception of God. A lot of times, a lot of people say, well, just pull yourself out of it, like Derek said, and then God will. How do I pull myself out of a free fall? Gravity doesn't work that way. There's nothing to hold on to. But when you reach the cushion, when you reach the bottom there is God, there is love, there is infinity. Now I have something to work with that I can go on with.
This is a really abstract idea, but this paper, like Derek was talking about earlier, your life goes up and down. I wanted to talk about how the paper kind of goes up and down in the paragraphs.
It does, actually. That's cool.
Without that up and down in the margins, you couldn't understand it, could you? Have you ever tried to, actually the Bible, in the Hebrew parts of the Bible, and in the original Greek too, there were no spaces. In the Greek New Testament, there were no spaces between words or chapters or whatever. So you had to go on and on and on. It's really hard to read. Yeah. Same in the Hebrew, you read it backwards and there are no vowels or spaces in between things. And it's really hard to read. It's only through the ups and downs, the texture of it, that you begin to understand. Yeah? But that doesn't mean that God is absent in these margins. Instead, God is speaking through them. That's a great way to finish up, I think. Any other thoughts? Any other burning thoughts? I love the idea of God being there in the margins of this paper. That was, yay, Pastor Gavin, we love it. All right, I got a question for you. Now that we've warmed up with this week's gospel, will you guys come back next week and do this one more time? Because I love doing this with you.
Yeah,
Awesome.
definitely.
All right, we will see you guys then.